everyone, and welcome. I initially set out to make a list of characters that Toji Fushiguro would defeat, but during my research, I had a realization. Because of his heavenly restriction and insane physical attributes, fans consider Toji to be unbeatable. I'm included in that. Toji is my favorite character, but I have to be realistic. As insane as Toji is, the fact that he doesn't have any cursed energy to block cursed energy attacks is a death sentence. Even though he can take a beating due to his physical attributes, he's extremely dependent on cursed tools, and that's a serious flaw. Depending on the enemy, this might not mean anything. Even though Toji is my favorite character, I have to accept the fact that he suffers from power creep. As the Jujutsu Kaisen story progresses, more and more powerful characters have been introduced. It's hard for him to compete with characters who can manipulate reality, create black holes, or become immortal for 4 minutes, and so on. For comparison, I'll use Maki. When Sukuna possessed Megami's body with 15 fingers, Maki rivaled him in terms of physical capabilities. Another detail is that Toji is a specialist in cursed tools. He uses his influence within the Zenin clan to get data on other sorcerers' abilities, which allows him to create strategies and use specific cursed tools as needed. So, I've put together a list of some characters that Toji could face. I've divided them into categories: would die, barely survives, a close win, could go either way, would win, and an easy win. So without further ado, let's get to the video. Let's start with the special grade curses: Jogo, Hanami, and Mahito. Toji made Dagon his bitch, but would he do the same to the other special grade curses? Toji would beat Hanami. Compared to Dagon, Hanami is more powerful, being more resistant, strong, and fast. But that wouldn't make much of a difference against Toji. Cursed Bud would have no effect on Toji, since he doesn't possess any cursed energy. Yuji and Todo were able to handle Hanami in close quarters combat. If Toji were to fight her, he would win with ease. Toji would beat Jogo. Against Jogo, the battle would be more intense. Jogo could simply burn Toji. Maki, not having a complete heavenly restriction, barely managed to survive, and Nanami survived with serious burns. Considering that Toji was able to block and survive a point-blank red, I would say that Jogo could severely injure Toji, but Toji would still emerge victorious, though with great difficulty. Toji would beat Mahito. Okay, this is where some Toji fans are going to get mad at me, but most likely, Toji wouldn't beat Mahito. Let's be honest here. Mahito's technique is absolutely overpowered. His idol transfiguration only needs a single touch to pop like popcorn. Nanami managed to accidentally protect his soul with cursed energy, and that's something Toji doesn't have. What's more, if Toji doesn't use the split soul katana, all of his attacks would be useless. But some fans will say, but Toji reincarnated in Shibuya. He has a special body, and since the soul and the body are one and the same, Mahito's technique wouldn't work. However, that's not how things operate. Granny Ogami only summoned the information of Toji's body, and even so, Toji's body overpowered her grandson's soul. What was controlling Toji was only his will, so much so that he was attacking anything in his path, focusing primarily on the strongest opponents. Given that Toji only fights in close quarters combat, that would be a perfect scenario for Mahito. Looking at it from Toji's side, if he uses the split soul katana, he could kill Mahito, but Mahito would only need one touch to kill Toji. This would be a fierce battle, where a single mistake from either side would lead to defeat. This fight could truly go either way. Toji would beat Hikari. An insane fight, no doubt about it. I'd say that Toji is stronger and more resilient than Hikari, but Hikari's technique is ridiculously overpowered. In his fight against Hajime, he escaped death multiple times thanks to his technique. Without a doubt, this is an obstacle to securing Toji's victory. I could call the win for Toji, but Hikari's technique makes that very difficult. We've seen that his technique can automatically regenerate any type of damage, even when Hajime tried to poison him with chlorine gas. For Toji, this would be a challenge. The only way to kill Hikari is by completely destroying his body. But if he were to use the split soul katana, it could be solved. I presume that Hikari's technique doesn't work against direct attacks to the soul. In that case, in order to heal the soul, the sorcerer would have to know its shape. As far as I remember, only 2 people were able to do that: Mahito, whose technique is based on soul manipulation, and Sukuna, when Maki stabbed his heart from behind. But even so, it's not a very easy process to do. Toji could win this battle in 2 ways: by cutting Hikari's soul. Even if Hikari could regenerate his soul, the process would be a bit slower, and by taking advantage of the small window of time between the activation of the domain expansion and Hikari's jackpot. Even pushing it a little, this fight would be almost impossible for Toji to win. Even though he's better in close quarters combat, Hikari has more than 4 minutes of immortality. It would be more of an endurance fight where the first one to get tired dies. I don't think Toji would win this battle. Toji would beat Higuruma. Higuruma is the prodigy of the culling game. As powerful as he is, he's very dependent on his innate technique, but getting it to work is a challenge. It works like a court of law. Higuruma has to have evidence and convince the Shikigami that the opponent is guilty in order to remove their innate technique. But Toji doesn't have an innate technique or cursed energy. Without the death penalty, Higuruma wouldn't have the executioner's sword for a guaranteed kill, leaving only the gavel as a weapon. Needless to say, that's useless against Toji in close quarters combat. Toji would beat Higuruma. Toji would beat Yuki Tsukumo. To be honest and get straight to the point, Toji wouldn't win. It's true that Toji has absurd resilience and incredible close quarters combat skills, but it doesn't compare to Yuki. Even though the two are on par in terms of physical abilities, Yuki can use her ability to increase the impact of her attacks. In her fight against Kenjaku, we saw how heavy her hand can be. Both Toji and Yuki are excellent close quarters combatants, but the fact that Yuki can increase the mass and impact of her attacks would take Toji down very easily, needing only a few attacks to defeat him. Toji would beat Yuta. Okay, you can even call me crazy, but if Toji and Yuta were to face each other in a one-on-one fight without using Rika and curse techniques, Toji could win. But then, I'd be nerfing Yuta too much. The fight would have to be both of them going all out. Against Yuta, Toji wouldn't stand a chance. It's basically a 2-on-1 fight. Plus, the variety of techniques Yuta has would make it difficult for Toji to form a strategy. Toji would lose for sure. Toji would beat Yorozu. I only put Yorozu here because of her biotechnological armor, which for me and her construction technique are simply incredible because she can create objects as needed. It's been shown that Yorozu's armor can withstand very powerful blows. In addition to increasing her strength and speed, Toji could even try to use the inverted spear of heaven, but even then, I don't think he could win. Yorozu can use her ability to create weapons as well as for locomotion. I admit that Toji might be physically stronger than Yorozu in her base form, but with her armor, even if the inverted spear of heaven works on Yorozu's armor, I don't think Toji would be able to be a match for the insect armor. It would be a tough fight, but Toji would lose. Toji would beat Hajime Kashimo in an insane fight, but it wouldn't end well for Toji. Hajime has a very powerful but one-time use technique, but even in his base form, he could defeat Toji. Hajime can assess his opponent and create paths to victory. He dealt with Panda's unblockable attack using superior speed and fighting technique to effortlessly overcome and dominate Gorilla Mode. In his fight against Hikari, he tried to explode his head and poison him. All of this shows just how intelligent he is in combat. As much as Toji is an outlier, he wouldn't survive a direct confrontation against Hajime. Before we continue, I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed and comments on my videos. It might not seem like much, but it means a lot to me. And if you'd like to help the channel even more, check out the link in the description. And finally, Toji would beat Yuji Itadori. Getting straight to the point, Toji wouldn't beat Yuji Itadori. At the end of the manga, after Gojo, Yuji was the one who held out against Sukuna the most. For me, in the end, Itadori surpassed Sukuna in terms of physical strength. With his punch exchange, in the style of Don Fry and Yoshihiro Takayama's fight, Yuji was able to win the exchange. Maki took only a single black flash hit and was knocked out. And how many consecutive black flashes was Yuji able to land on Sukuna? You could even argue that since they both have superhuman bodies without using cursed energy, Yuji is far superior to Toji. As much as Toji has a heavenly restriction and possesses superhuman physical attributes, he can't overcome the perfect vessel for Sukuna created by Kenjaku. Now, let me know in the comments who you think Toji would defeat.